without scales. With scales. This is a prime example as to why you need to learn your scales. Without scales, music just doesn't sound musical. Scales are literally the thing that takes random notes and makes them sound musical. If you want to understand your music better, you need to understand how to make scales. So today I'm going to break down what a scale is, the two main scales that are used in Western music, how to construct them, and then at the end I'm going to give you a chord progression for each of the scales that you guys can use in your next beat. So make sure you stick around for that. First things first, what is a scale? In my words, a scale is just a ratio of notes that sounds good together. The cool thing about FL Studio, if you go up to this little music note in the top right and you right click it, these are all of the scales. There's a ton of different scales. All you have to do is right click on which one that you want, pick a root note, and FL Studio will actually go ahead and highlight in white each of the notes inside the scale that you choose. C major scale be all of the white notes. Now, scale highlighting is a great tool to use, but you don't want to rely on this. You need to understand what is happening in each scale so that you're not trapped in the scale. Because most of the best songs you've ever heard usually have more than one scale in them, and they move throughout from scale to scale throughout the entire track. So the two main scales that exist in Western music are the major scale and the minor scale. Now, I'm sure you've already heard of those, but if you haven't, let me just show you the difference between the two. So here is the major scale. It sounds like this. Very nice, a very classic sound. It's known for being upbeat and happy. That is what the major scale is known for. This is that classic do, re, mi that everybody learns in like second grade or whatever when you're learning the recorder. Now, the ratio of notes in the major scale goes like this. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. All that a whole step is two notes in the piano roll. So a whole step would be from C to D would be a whole step. A half step would be one note in the piano roll. Or if you're British, tone, 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 semitone, tone, 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 semitone. And these are the notes major scale. Now, the cool thing about scales is once you know the ratio, you can go ahead and shift this up and down and get different major scales. So here we have the F major scale. And here we have the A sharp major scale. And that's the cool thing about scales is once you learn the pattern, you can apply it anywhere in the piano roll and it will always work every single time. So that's the major scale. Let's move on to the minor scale. The minor scale, it's very similar to the major scale. Let's just hear the minor scale. It sounds very similar to the major scale. The only difference ratio is slightly different. So for a minor scale, it goes whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. A very subtle change, but it makes a huge difference in the sound that it's going to create. Let me just show you what I mean by that. So here we have a C major chord followed by a C minor chord. Notice how there's literally only one thing that's different. You just take the third, flatten it, and you get the minor. Let's just hear it. And this is the difference between the major and the minor scale. The major scale sounds very happy and upbeat. And the minor scale sounds kind of sad, dark, and tense. They They sound very similar, but obviously different. So you understand the difference between the major and the minor scales, as well as how to create them. I'm gonna give you a few chord progressions for each scale that you guys can use. So first is this major, a very common progression, 1, 5, 6, 4. Sounds like this. You might have heard this before, honestly. It's very common. Now, if you don't know how to build actual chords from these bass notes, check out this video where I go into more detail about how I think about building chords. Now let's move on to the minor chord progression. For this one, I have a little bit of a different vibe, and it's a 1, 6, 3, 7. This progression is pretty tense, so let's just hear it. Boom. So that was a super quick guide about scales. Obviously, if you want me to go more in depth in the future, I will. Yeah, that was just a quick overview, major versus minor scales. It's pretty simple. I would suggest memorizing these scales. It is very important to have these scales memorized and burned into your brain. And once you know the ratio, you can apply it to any note in the piano roll, and you're going to get the major scale or the minor scale of that note. I hope you found value in this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you when I see you.